Hey guys, finally got a little bit of spare time. All the big shoots are over. All my trips are done with for at least a month and a half, 2 months. So gonna try and really work on providing you guys some videos on calling tips, hunting tips, shooting tips, whatever you guys want. Go ahead and post, post a comment down below on this video with requests of what you guys want to see in the future. This video is going to be about the basics of blowing a short reed goose call. There's essentially to every, even on a flute, but to the goose vocabulary. So no matter what call you're using, you have three parts. You have a bass, you have a break, and you have a moan. So we're going to go through all three of those parts and how to put them together to build the basics of goose calling, whether it be on a short reed or a flute. It's basically, it's all three parts build every goose, almost every goose note that you need to use to kill birds. So we're going to go into that. I'm using a Black Timber Calls overload, stock tuned with our fuse semi-broken in guts. Good call, great range, very easy to use. It'll hit everything from the top to the bottom and everything in between. These are a semi-broken in gut, very easy to use, good tone. They'll let you hit everything, but you can keep breaking them in too. So, they're not overly broken in. They don't take a bunch of air like most of the deep broken in calls, and they're not going to wear out very quickly. So you can go check this out at blacktimbercalls.com. And we're going to start from there. So the first note that we really want to work on, not note, but the first part of a goose vocabulary is going to be the bass note. So this is essentially the beginning of every note that gets you a nice goosey sound. And it's going to be that at the beginning of a cluck, or the murmur, where it's going to be You hear it a lot. It's the underlying sound that you hear, versus the break, which is the top sound that you hear all the notes break on. So to get that bass note, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to drop our jaw a little bit, and we're almost going to hum into the call. This is going to be the dirtiest air that you put into a call. Most notes are going to be pretty much clean air. This one, you're going to put a little dirty. It's not going to be a growl, but it's going to be a hum. You're going to feel it vibrating a little bit right down here. You're not going to growl in your throat, but you're going to feel it vibrate in your chest. And this one, you want to get a lot of hot air, like you're fogging up a mirror. So it's, but dropping that jaw, opening the throat, humming from in your chest. It's going to sound a little something like this with no hands. So this is going to be the first sound that you hear without having any hands on the call. All right, so obviously that sounds nothing like a goose. Where you're going to get the goosiness from is going to be putting that call between your forefinger and your ring finger, extending that insert. So you'll have your high one, you'll have your medium one, and then you wrap this around like this. Now you're going to leave a little bit of an opening because you don't want to choke the call down. You're going to make it stick. It's not going to sound good. You leave an opening, but that's going to get you your deep bass note right there. So I'm going to go through all three pitches of that, and we're going to see how it sounds. Now, obviously, that doesn't sound anything like a goose because we're not putting in a goose rhythm or goose cadence. So we're going to work on that now. So it's going to be, if you're looking for the murmur, it's going to be We're going to go ahead and do that right now. So as you can see, that's kind of what you hear when geese are sitting in a field feeding. It's the bass note of all goose calling. So that gives you your murmur, and it gives you the start of your cluck. So a cluck is going to be that bass note shaped into a break. So you have your bass shaped into your break, and your break is essentially going to be the top part. It's going to be the break of every note, and it's going to be to create it on a cluck or a honk is going to be. I like to use the reference word luck, because what it does is it gets your tongue coming from the top, going luck, 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 luck. It's getting your tongue to drop down and snap, drop down and snap. And what it does is it cuts the air off sharp at the end to get that break, but it lets you shape the note up into that break. So you shape the note down and then up into the break. When you do just the break, which is what we're going to work on here, it's going to be the second part. It's going to be like luck, luck, luck. It's going to be a shortened version of luck, because you're not trying to get the bass note into this. It's just going to be the break, and it's going to sound a little something like this. So that was the break right there, and that's just working on getting that snap at the top. We're going to incorporate it with the bass shaping into it. So it's going to be like luck, 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 just sitting there like a goose. It's going to sound a little something like this. So as you can see, I did a few low ones, a few high ones, worked a high and low back and forth a little bit. That's your basis of a basic double cluck. And then I worked a scale, low, a little bit higher, and then a little bit higher. So luck, 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 luck. You work that scale, learn how to change your pitches, and then you could throw a bunch of different geese around just with that bass and break and nothing else. But when we incorporate the moan into it, that's where you get even more sounds. So the moan is essentially, we're going to be dropping our jaw once again, opening our mouth cavity up, but this time, instead of doing a hum, it's going to be straight air, forced a little bit faster, and it's going to sound a little something like this without any hands on the call. All right, so as you can see, that didn't sound very much like a goose, because once again, we didn't have our hands on the call, but that's getting the sound to your ears of what it's going to be coming through the call without any hands, because everybody's got different hands, different ways of putting it on there, different tune call. You know, I'm just trying to give you the basic sound of what it's going to sound like, and then it'll be a little bit different when we do everything else. But that'll give you your high, thin one. Once again, just like the murmur, we can have a middle one, and then we can have a low, you know, nice content moan. So all three of those are going to sound a little something like this. So you can see I did kind of the high, medium, low. In that medium, I had one where I had my hand just a little bit more open, and it had a complete different inflection when I closed the hand down a little bit, and then closed even more, and it got even lower. And you know, that would be something you would use more contently. So that gives you your moan. You can mix that in on its own, or you can run the moan to the break and create what is called a honk. So the honk is essentially that moan shaped into a break, just like what we had with the, with the bass shaped into a break for a cluck. The moan is, or the honk is a moan shaped into the break. Gonna sound a little something like this. So, as you can see, it's shaped into it like the bass into the break for the cluck. You can also do it with a slight split between the break and the moan, and that gives you a moan cluck. So it'd be like glock click, glock click, glock click, glock click, instead of being lawlick, 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 lawlick. And that's fine. I'm gonna go through the difference. The honk, just running honks over, is it's a cheating way of getting kind of that two bird sound. It'll work, it'll be effective in the field, but if you can get the little slight separation, slight pause in between the moan and the break and get that moan cluck sequence, it sounds a lot more natural, sounds a lot more like two birds. So I'm going to run through both of them just so you guys can see the difference. They're going to sound a little something like this. So you can see the difference. The one sounds fine. It'll work. It'll kill you birds. But the other one's just a little more advanced sound, getting that slight separation between the moan and the break to get that moan cluck. It sounds a lot more natural, sounds a lot more like two birds coming in. I use that a lot, especially because I use a flute, so you get that kind of hollow sound on that moan. Sounds real natural. But I'll use that as a hail call, an attention getter, or as a comeback call, because it sounds like two geese coming into the decoy spread, and it gets the attention of birds and makes them want to give it a look, because if two birds are going in, why shouldn't they? So that's kind of how I use that. Now I'm going to show you what it sounds like. I'll do 20-30 seconds of mixing everything together individually and combined with other notes to sound like a ton of geese. Now, I am only going to use the bass, the break, and the moan. Not going to get anything fancy. Not going to do any spit notes. Not going to do any rolled doubles. Not going to do any triples, rolled triples. No trains, none of the fancy stuff. I'm just going to do bass, break, moan, combining them to make clucks, honks, moan clucks, murmurs, individually put together to shape notes. We're going to do that. We're going to sound like a field full of geese. And really, this is the three basic parts that you need to learn how to kill geese. You don't need anything else in your repertoire other than these three basic parts and learning how to put them together. So it's going to sound a little something like this. Going to sound like a bunch of geese without doing anything fancy. So as you can see, did nothing fancy. I accidentally slipped in like maybe 2 rolled double clucks just out of habit, but pretty much everything, bass, break, moans, putting them together, shaping them together, bouncing them off of each other. You can sound like a bunch of different geese like that. And that's the basics of blowing a call. That's the basics that you need to go out and be successful out in the field. Learn these, perfect these, learn how to put them together in ways that get geese attention. Just go out there and try these 3 basic things on geese, see how the geese react to them. And that's really all you need to do. So that's the basics of blowing a short reed goose call, blowing a flute call. You know, that's the basics of a goose vocabulary. Work on them, learn them, perfect them. You'll be golden out in the field. If you guys have any questions, anything that you want to see in the future, leave it in a comment below on this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back shortly.